Soundstripe.
Welcome into another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs, joined me by my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
The Great Return.
Yes, back with us this week.
Yeah,
we missed you so much last week.
Guys.
We did.
On your movie pick.
I hated being here.
Hey, we
Yeah, on my movie pick. I hated the fact that I wasn't able to be on here on that one. I really enjoyed that movie.
Obviously, our listeners found out that you not being here is not that big of a deal because we still went like almost an hour and a half. It's all Ernie's fault, though. Speaking of which, also joined by Ernie Ferguson.
My name is Nawanda.
What would you do if I just didn't introduce you? Would you just randomly?
There's gonna be a quote sometime in here.
Just randomly interject me in the middle of the podcast. I got to get this quote in.
Yeah, I would just say we are all food for worms. Stuff like that.
But yeah, we're super excited to have Dakota back with us this week. Missed you last week, buddy.
Yeah, there was a hole in the. I mean, even though we talk the most, there is a hole in the conversations without you.
Yeah, it was definitely really weird listening to the podcast and not being a part of it. It was. I definitely feel
it's probably
because there's a thing where I don't know if y'all's wives do this, if y'all wives listen to our podcast, but my wife will be listening to the podcast and will text me as if I'm still talking live at that moment. And then it was a really weird moment where I kind of understand where she's wanting to say now, talking to the people on the podcast, and I don't know. It was very different. I really miss being here.
My wife only likes listening to the episodes of movies that she knows, and she's not very movie centric.
Mine either. I don't know if we've seen a movie that my wife likes yet.
I think she's out of the movies we've done. Twister. I'm trying to think. I think there was at least one more. I don't know if she's seen Back to the Future. I don't know if she's listened to it.
She's seen A Few Good Men, haven't she?
I think she watched.
She can't handle the truth. Oh my goodness!
Can't handle the truth.
A lawyer drama is not what my wife is.
Yeah. You need to get her to watch My Cousin Vinny to introduce her to the lawyer dramas.
What year did that come out?
That's before 2000.
Yeah,
I definitely wanted to pick it, but I didn't want. I didn't want to do A Few Good Men and then have My Cousin Vinny so close to it, since they're so closely related. I love those movies so much.
Again, that courtroom drama and comedy. That's two different genres. You can spread out from there.
It's probably not. First off, could you tell listening to the podcast, Dakota, that we had technical difficulties?
I mean, it wasn't too obvious. I don't think.
Did I tell you we had it, or did you
You did. You told me. Okay. I think y'all had to stop recording in the middle of it.
Yeah, something went wrong with my microphone.
Yeah, so
it's part of the biz.
Yeah.
And then wasn't Suggs immediately asking you afterwards, "Hey, what microphone do you use?"
Yeah.
Hey, I know you're having technical difficulties with the one you're using, but what are you using? I might like.
It's kind of like my body. When it works, it's pretty good, but half the time it doesn't work. So my knees are shot. So I'm like,
what an analogy.
Hey, when you got bad knees, your neck cricks all the time. My warranty's out.
On that note, this week we're doing Dead Poets Society 1989. This is Ernie's pick. He gave us a list of movies that he wanted us to help pick from, and I obliged. And then he picked one completely not on the list.
I just had I even had something. I don't know. Y'all may not look at the spreadsheet or whatever, but I had one typed in already, and one of the ones on the list. And for some reason, I was like, nah, I don't want The Mummy.
Okay. So
And I was like,
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that down there. Yeah,
and
it's
so I
crazy.
was like, I know Dead Poet Society's been in the back of my head for a while, just because being a teacher myself, just all this, it really rang true, and also,
Hmm.
spoiler alert, having a friend's brother commit suicide also kind of really hit too. And it's one of those things. Looking on this movie is one of the things that Keaton preached or whatever for the kids is to not conform, to find their
Hmm.
voice. And I don't know if I was ever successful as that as a teacher. I tried to push that. I tried to not not try to indoctrinate them into the Fergusonisms of my thinking, and try to get them to think for themselves. And so that's one of those things where, um, again, as a teacher, it really kind of rang true, especially looking at all the relationships that some of the kids had with their parents, and then going into my classrooms, knowing that some of the kids that I was teaching had the same type of relationships with their
Hmm.
parents, or lack of relationships with their parents. And so that's why this movie really kind of rings true for me a lot.
Yeah.
If I
Well,
will say, as one of your former students, um, that I really did get this vibe from you a lot. Like I really couldn't tell you what you honestly, I to this day I really couldn't tell you like what way you lean politically, like what way you lean like even like religion wise or anything like that. And so I really do think you do a good job, and I can definitely see how this movie has influenced your teaching style.
Yeah.
Um,
Devil's advocate is always something that I tried to play, and I think I told
you
that to my
definitely did
classes.
a good job as that.
Is I always told them, I was like, what I'm telling you may not be what I believe, but I do want you to think
Hmm.
a little bit, and that's because that's, to me, I mean, I'm a history teacher. I understand my role in life. I mean, I'm not math. You need to know how to read and write, but my job, as a history teacher, yes, dates and whatever, and how to color, uh, but uh, but teach you how to think, and not just think like your parents, because we all, and that's, just seeing Neil and seeing Todd,
Hmm.
just have to be, crammed into the form of their parents, and just it just the
Hmm.
soul crushing that you see that these boys have to go through, which, again, we're talking about 1959. So
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, I've been teaching 97 to now, and the parental, aspect of it is different than this, but just the soul crushing that you see some of these kids, especially like Neil, um, and even Todd too. Just
Hmm.
that actually absolutely rips your heart out as a teacher to see that. And I never want the kids to like go against their parents, but I also don't want them to sit there. I've said it over my class. I don't want you to regurgitate what your parents say. I don't care what they think.
Hmm.
I want you to be able to think and
Hmm.
have a reason that you think that, not just
Hmm.
blah 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 blah. Unfortunately, we see a lot in society where people don't know why they believe stuff; they just believe, or believe is a strong word too, but that's neither here nor there.
And I think this movie does a really good job with that, even like taking that concept and applying it. Because I mean, you even see, and I know this is later on in the movie where Keating does sit down with Neil and he tells him, he's like, hey, like you're telling me this, but like, have you had this conversation with your dad? Have you had this conversation with your father? Like he's not telling him, hey, sure, openly defy your dad. Like he's telling him, hey, like sit down and have a respectful conversation with your dad about this and just see how it goes. Like it might go your way, it might not go your way, but you're not going to get anywhere if you don't talk about it in the first place. And I think that was one of the things that I really appreciated about this movie was the fact that it wasn't just a yeah, like stick it to the man type of movie.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, like there's a respectful way to go about things. And you see that two or three times throughout the movie coming out, like from Keating, like
Hmm.
uh, with the guys, hey, that's God calling, and we should get girls come here, and like, he's like, hey, like, look, I get what you're trying to do here, but that wasn't the way to go about this.
Yeah. What
You
was
know?
the quote? Oh, soak the marrow out of the bone, don't choke on the bone, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was very poignant, because, yeah, again, it's don't be stupid. How many times he told Dalton,
Hmm.
don't be stupid, and that's, that's again the powerfulness of the movie, because you talked about that first talk that he had with Neil, and then the second talk in his classroom where did you tell him? And Neil
Hmm.
said, yes, I told my dad. And you could look in Keaton's eyes, and he knew that Neil was lying.
Immediately, yeah.
And then telling Dalton to shut up after the play, because it would just make it worse. I mean,
Yeah.
Keaton, and I know we're stepping all over the movie, but that's all right. We'll be able to go through it faster. But the heartbreak of Keating after Neil's suicide in the
Hmm.
classroom, and just because he feels some responsibility for that.
Hmm.
uh and just that soul crushing, because you, as a teacher, you want to help your kids, you want to make them a better person, you want them to be able to deal with life and be able to just take the bull by the horns, and but yet, unfortunately, in this job, you see stuff like this, you see
Hmm.
stuff like, and again, I can't
Unfortunate.
remember when you graduated, Dakota, but like we had the one kid who died, who drowned and
Yeah.
died in 2000, I
That
think
was
10, I
10,
think it
Three.
was.
I think it was 10.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, and you see how stuff like that affects them, like
Hmm.
the inquiry after Neil's suicide, getting those boys in a room with their parents with this document. I mean, Keaton knew. I mean, the only one that, stood up was Dalton, and you knew he was just because he was past all the BS by that. He didn't care anymore. But the rest
Hmm.
of the others, you're talking about 16, 17-year-old boys that
Yeah.
have just gone through something traumatic, and now all of a sudden you're gonna press them into that. How else? I mean, how else do people expect them to play?
Yeah.
And and that's, I never thought. I don't. I wonder if a movie like this could be made because of the suicide and because of the relationship that Keating had with the boys, how people would take it a different way. I guess that's one of the good things about having it set in 1959 is that you have a little bit more innocence of age at that time, so
Hmm.
you don't look at that. You don't look at the relationship kind of weird, but I don't. That's. I remember watching this the first time I watched it, and Neil's suicide was like, wait, what? You got to be kidding me! What this is? And it was. I mean, it was just. I mean, so heavy
Hmm.
to be able to think about that type of stuff. And what's even crazier about this film is they filmed the movie in chronological order. So unlike most movies, they do snips pieces here,
Yeah.
put everything together. But the director had all the boys living together, trying to get them together, so that way you had the relationship build and build and build and build. And
Yeah.
then whenever Neil killed himself, Robert Sean Leonard, the actor, wasn't on set anymore. He was gone. He was never back on. He was never back on set. And so you get truly you get not just acting emotions, you get real emotions out of the kids, because again, here they've been bonding with this guy this whole entire time. Now all of a sudden, boom, he's disappeared and no longer on set anymore. And it's just nuts. Golly, it's nuts.
I did not know that. That's a really crazy way to film that, But like you said, it really does pull out those raw emotions out of the actors, out of the people, kind of seeing, kind of giving them something to kind of tap into, like
Yeah.
they have a normality that is based on set, and then changing that up to make it easier, like, hey, this is what's happening in the script as well.
Yeah. And that's, and I liked how, one, I liked just the group of kids together, because you knew Cameron was going to be a fink from the very beginning, just
Yeah.
because he had the ruler out, ripping the page out with the ruler down, but also asking his Keating said that, I know you're thinking about, is this for a grade? Just and
Hmm.
you see that relationship just kind of trying to kind of go along with it. And watch the movie again, when Todd finds out about Neil's suicide, then all the kids follow Todd outside. Cameron was the only one that wasn't outside with him while he was throwing up in the snow, and all the other ones had his back. And you just knew it just was. But I mean, you have Neil trying to find his dad's approval. You had Todd just trying to be noticed so he doesn't get the same
Mm-hmm.
Christmas present again. You have Knox looking for love. You have Dalton
Mm-hmm.
just kind of looking for freedom. It's just it's a great coming of age movie. It's a great movie to see that I think a lot of people think kids have an easy life. And for the most part, they don't have to pay bills, they don't have to do whatever. But kids don't have an easy life. I mean, and this is without phones. This is without internet.
Yeah.
And just the idea of parents and family in the late 50s. I mean, just the dominant dad and the mom. I mean, just she couldn't say she saw that the son was heartbroken after the play, but just go to sleep, Neil. Just go to sleep. I mean,
Yeah.
just it's very again. It's why this one really touches me because of the idea. Because this is based in teaching and seeing that what kids go through. So sorry, Caleb. I'm on a diatribe.
Yeah.
So this one's going for a record time too. Also,
We're
uh,
we were 15 minutes in. That's not too bad.
that's not too
I'm
bad.
just letting y'all do y'all's thing. I agree with a lot of what y'all saying. But yeah,
Well, and here's the crazy thing. I mean, I knew Robin Williams from Mork and Mindy. So a spinoff of Happy Days, where he was an
Mhm.
alien, no, and that's one of the things he would say. And so you have a true comedian,
Yeah.
and yes, you see the comedic role in here, but I mean, of course, he wasn't the original. They had
Mhm.
who's the guy on Taken? Liam Neeson was signed up for this, but they changed directors, and even before that, I want to say it was Dustin Hoffman was Mr. Keating. And so Dustin Hoffman was the first one, Liam Neeson was the second one, and then they just kind of revamped everything and then went with Robin Williams. But I'll tell you what, man, Robin Williams, he had enough of his comedy and enough of his, free form type of just acting. But the care that he had for the boys, again, the heartbreaking
Mhm.
scene where he breaks down after Neil's death. I mean that this was an amazing acting job
Oh
by
yeah.
Robin Williams. And again, I thought Ethan Hawke did a fantastic job of just being Todd. He
Mhm.
really did. I thought all the actors were really good. Even the headmaster was a
Mhm.
great butthole.
Oh yeah.
He did good there too. So I just it's just some of the little things as we kind of go on. It really made it noticeable and really liked it.
No.
And the more and more I think of it, more and more I'm saying I like it more than I thought I did. The more I'm talking about this. So my scores may be changing differently, which I still don't know what I was going to score it before I came into this either. So
I didn't. I
um,
don't. I didn't. I still don't know what I'm going to score it.
I it,
It.
that and that's
I
the thing.
have an idea,
And
but
this is what I hate about me because I'm looking at our old ones and I'm going, well, I ranked this, and to me, I have the most nines, and I'm thinking I always thought I was the harshest one on some of them, or I pulled back on some things too, and I'm looking at like, goodness gracious, I'm like Oprah here, 9 for you, and 9 for
I'm
you.
gonna be honest with you. When I'm ranking movies, I don't even look at the list. I don't even look
See,
at what
that's the
I've
way you
ranked in the
should do it.
past. I do my best not to even think about the movies. Like I can't. I
So
will say a couple things about this that really kind of stood out to me is like, especially with Robin Williams. Of course, knowing later on, he did commit suicide as
yeah,
well. Like, I think that kind of stuck out to me in this is like him knowing, like I guess him knowing what that character is going through.
mm,
Because I mean, like, he had battled through depression his entire life. And I think I think that's why that scene where he's breaking down in the classroom really kind
mm,
of hit home for him, was
yeah,
because he could see. I feel like he could see where where Neil was at, where he felt hopeless, where he felt like he didn't have anything or anywhere to go, and he saw that and he's like, and then it's something that had crossed his mind before about going, taking his own life before that, and eventually, what was this, 98 or 89,
89, I
something.
think, yeah.
Yeah, 89. I mean, thinking
Yeah.
35 years later that he does eventually take his own life in that, and I can't help but thinking like that I think Robin Williams really understood what was happening. I think that's why that plays so much into the depth of his character.
And I
Um,
think that you can tie that also into the Todd character, the scene with Todd where he finally gets Todd to speak and talk. Because
yeah.
again, I mean, just think if, just think how the depression would have set in Robin Williams sooner if he wouldn't be able to disguise it or hide it with his comedy.
Oh yeah.
And again,
Easily.
you see this. I mean, how he just becomes mesmerized by Todd finally being able to break through and just struggle through, and to be able to talk and be able to say the beautiful things that were coming out of his mind.
Hmm.
You can kind of see that. Once you said that about Neil, I mean, I can see that with Robin Williams, the actor, looking at Todd using
Hmm.
that, because if Todd didn't let this out, Todd could have easily ended up like Neil too.
Yeah. The
So
other thing I did want to mention, and this is kind of a little bit of a different here, more of a, I guess, a lighter note, on a lighter note. Uh, Kurtwood Smith, who plays Neil's father, all I could see throughout this entire movie was Red Foreman.
I was
He
waiting for him to
came
say put a
in.
foot up his rear. I was like,
Yeah, I was waiting on it the whole time. I mean, the first time that he came on screen, and he started talking to him, and like just the whole interaction, I was like, this is Red Foreman with a different character's name.
yeah,
This is 100% like he plays the same character, and I think that still shows in like even now. He plays in the '90s show now, doesn't he?
yeah,
I want to be fair to Red Foreman had a soft side. I mean,
yes, yeah, he did.
Red did, yeah.
this dad he plays in this one, which I mean, granted, I know he loves his son, but I mean, it's pretty strict.
You know,
You could see
this
where he's coming from though.
Yeah. I mean, like they said, he told Neil, he said, we don't come from a lot of money.
Yeah.
Said, this is your
Yeah.
opportunity. He's trying to better himself. And it really kind of looks like some of the things I've heard my dad talk about. Again, my dad's 80. And so he was born in 40 something, 44. And he just talks about his dad. He's mentioned like he's not sure he knows his dad loves him. He said, but he doesn't know how many times his dad actually said that. And
Mhm.
just the different the evolution of being a father. I can't imagine. I don't have a son either, though. I have a daughter. I can't imagine not telling my daughter that I love her.
Mhm.
Just she knows how I feel. She knows how I feel about her. I, you know, and also, when I look at Kurtwood Smith's character, and I think about my daughter. My daughter wanted to be a police officer. I was like, okay, Ernie, just bite your lip, don't say a word. She'll figure this out on her own. Because again, as a kind soul as she is, when we kind of discussed it. Whenever she changed her direction, I said, I think you could be a police officer. I don't think you could aim a weapon at anybody, and then pull the trigger if you had to. I just don't think you could, But again, that's one of those things where I had to, I could have easily gone, "Nah, go this way. And that's one of the things that my parents have. I know they've done. They've let us kind of go our own road. I mean, obviously my family's in Texas and I live in Alabama, so they let me go that different route. And so to see Neil's dad just crush anything, and I understand the no, don't be an actor. Okay,
Mhm.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but not even let him like be a part of that, and follow that. And then that's crushing one way. But then the absolute neglect from Todd's parents,
Mhm.
they overlook. That's one of the crushing things that you see in schools too. Is there are different types of neglect. I've seen neglect at an upper middle class school where parents basically give their kids money and then say go away. Then I have the other schools where the parents aren't even there. They don't. I mean,
Mhm.
they have nowhere. I mean, but again, you have parents that don't even know you. Don't they overlook you? Again, heartbreak to see. Uh, so.
And that was one of the things I commented to Kamei when we started watching this. I was like, these these kids can't have a relationship with their parents, right? Because what,
No,
like they ship them off in August, they come back in what, November for a week, and then they come back in December for 2 weeks, and then they go right back to school, and they see them over the summer. Like it's not that surprising that these kids would be closer to the teachers
hmm
who they see every day, who they interact with every day, who were there, who were like talking to them, and not have a relationship with their parents. And then the parents come, and I think that was one of the infuriating parts of this movie. Seeing it was like the parents are infuriated, like dumbfounded when all of a sudden their
yeah.
kids are, you know, closer to Keaton or however you say his name, like they're closer to him than they are to them, and it's like, why wouldn't they follow him? Why wouldn't they listen to him?
Yeah, and then I mean, you also the headmaster. Okay, you knew Keating. You knew what
Mm-hmm.
kind of person Keating was. You look at the
Literally.
You look at the Latin teacher. Obla dee, obla da, obla do, and then you get someone like Keating. Did you think Keating was a conformist? Did you? I mean, did you not have a clue at all
Dude,
what Keating
it
was?
was in. Did he not put Dead Poet Society member in his yearbook?
He was a thigh man. I mean, that's
Yeah,
it was in the yearbook. I mean,
yeah,
come on now. I mean, it's like, you knew what you were getting when you
yeah.
got that, and just, I, it is what it is. But,
It is.
but again, so how do you not think that these kids won't be gravitating to him? I mean, he's not an old fart. He's not doing the pentameter of the whatever the poetry rating was. So I'm pointing fingers at the headmaster too. Said you should have known better.
All right.
I think we
Well,
might be able to actually start on the
That's
movie
all I was like.
itself
I've got to quit
at,
making
at,
comments.
yeah,
thir-
I'm gonna
at
I'm
30
gonna
minutes in.
I'm gonna quickly go through the statistics here. Um, Dead Poet Society is a 1989 American coming-of-age drama film directed by Peter Weir and written by Tom Schulman. The film, starring Robin Williams, is set in 1959 at a fictional elite boarding school called Welton Academy and tells the story of an English teacher who inspires his students through his teaching of poetry. The film was released in the United States on June 2nd, 1989. It grossed $235 million worldwide on a budget of just $16.4 million. It holds a Rotten Tomatoes score of 85% and an
Mhm.
8.1 out of 10 on IMDb. So
Mm-hmm.
very successful all the way around.
This was originally it was originally going to be filmed in Atlanta. This was, I think, under Liam Neeson, and then when they canceled that, they burned all the props and all the studio, whatever they burned it down to the ground. And so whenever they got Robin Williams, well, couldn't film it in Atlanta. Put one because, well, the sets were burned down, and two because they wanted snow. So that's why I think they ended up going to Delaware and recording this. So I was like, wow, I mean, you had all these sets built, and we're just going to burn them down because it didn't get going. So I thought that was weird too. Movie industry, it's something else.
Oh, it is.
I don't. Ernie, what was your first? I didn't want to ask. What's your first memory of this movie? Because you would have been 15 around this time.
I would have been. Let's see,
89.
15.
yeah,
Right?
80, whatever 89, but that's 15 to 16, I think. Yeah, maybe about to turn 16. I think this was more of a video. I don't know if I actually went and saw this in the movie theater. But again, I know the Robin Williams one, you were like, oh, he's not doing comedy. He's being serious. This would be for some people the equivalent of, I think, like Pete Davidson doing something serious. Jim Carrey when he did something serious also. It wasn't expected, and so that was kind of the buzz about it. Was Robin Williams being serious? Can Robin Williams be serious? Which again, you still get a little bit of the humor in there, but again,
Mm-hmm.
still heartfelt. And that's what I remember about the most. I remember watching it. I think I may still have it on VHS in my house right now. So I don't know if I have a VCR, but I think I have it on VHS. So that's kind of what I remember. The biggest deal was Robin Williams doing something serious?
Tell Google that because they have it listed as a comedy/drama.
I don't get it.
I'm sorry. If the movie has a suicide in it,
Yeah,
you can't call it a comedy. I'm sorry. That's even on our list. I don't think I'd call it a comedy.
there's no way that it is.
No.
I don't. First time I saw this movie was in senior year of high school in English class, and then I watched it
What a
again
heavy movie
in
to watch in high
college.
school.
Well,
So
it teaches you how to woo women.
I mean, hey,
I guess so. Yeah.
I think it's a good movie. I mean,
If you're teaching something on poetry, I mean, it is a book. I mean,
Yeah,
that
I
Poet
know.
Society
Yeah.
is a book. So,
well, I think
which one day I will actually read that.
I mean, my senior year English teacher, one of the best teachers I ever had, but he was a former college professor, and he was also one of the hardest teachers I ever had. So I wouldn't necessarily say his class was just, so if he showed a movie, I mean, there was a reason.
Yeah.
But
Wow,
anyways,
you did. Sorry, this is I guess the difference. I had like British lit my senior year because we did
I had,
Beowulf, and I had to memorize the
Oh,
prologue of
God.
the Canterbury Tales in Old English, and
I
and
had,
oh
I took AP literature, and
okay,
I mean, the
Oh,
books we
yeah, dude.
did
Never mind.
that year. I don't remember exactly why we watched this movie, but like the books we did that year. I mean, our summer reading was Lord of the Flies, and that was kind of the big for the whole
yeah.
year. And
Mhm.
then we did Streetcar Named Desire. We did that at some point,
Hmm.
and Lesson Before Dying.
Stella.
See, unfortunately, when he at the beginning of the movie, when uh, Keating starts listing off some of the, the romantics and stuff like that, it just gives me flashbacks to this last semester. In the spring semester, I had to take American literature, and it was everything up to Civil War. And so when he started throwing out Thoreau and uh, Lord, I'll be honest with you. I'm sorry to whoever my American Lit professor was at Calhoun. I've memorized enough to get through that class, and I don't know anything from it. But
I
all of
tell you
these
what,
names, I was just like, oh my word, man! Please don't.
there is a reason that I taught junior history, modern American history, modern American literature. Let's go. Pre-Civil War history and pre-Civil War literature. Oh, dear Lord, put me to sleep
Oh
right
yeah,
now. I just,
there were so many. I remember I had to watch. This is off subject, but I had to read the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, and I didn't have time to actually sit down and read it. And so I did something that I don't normally do is I purchased the audiobook because it was 99 cents, and
there
I
you
put it
go.
at 2.5 times speed. And on my lunch breaks at work, you would see me sitting in my truck listening to a narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. But that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's what hearing all these names and stuff kind of it gives me a not very good flashback.
Yeah.
Well, in 1959, Todd Anderson begins his junior year of high school at Welton Academy, an Episcopalian all-male preparatory boarding school in Vermont. Assigned one of Welton's most promising students, senior Neil Perry, as his roommate, he meets Neil's friends Knox Overstreet, Richard Cameron, Stephen Meeks, Gerard Pitts, and Charlie Dalton. So we open up the movie. We first of all, I hate bagpipes. I just gotta say that. As much as if I uh, if I ever did visit another country, Scotland would probably be one of the top two that I would want to visit. As much as, but I absolutely hate bagpipes, and that's we get the opening.
Oh yeah, that is another thing. Yeah,
Well, that's because the bagpipes are always playing "Oh Scotland" or whatever, Scotland the
yeah,
Great,
it's
or it's
always
always
the
playing the
same
same
thing.
thing. I mean, get something a little bit different. Like, I mean, listen to Big Country. It's
yeah.
a band from Scotland, and they have bagpipes in their song "Big
Okay,
Country." So you have a song, you have an
Yeah,
artist named Big Country that sings a song "Big Country," and it has
uh,
bagpipes in it. It's pretty good.
I'll try that out. But
And ACDC has a song that has bagpipes into it. Also, I just can't
I
remember which
sure
one it
do.
is.
I don't. I
but
remember listening to it.
we
But
get
so the opening scene, I like it because again, we introduce all the characters and we see Neil's dad, where he walks in
Mhm.
and he tells him, "You're off the annual staff," and
Yep.
and Neil's voice cracks, and he can't stand up to his dad, which will come into play later on too. And of course, Dalton's already striking up a cigarette too in the dorm room. Which
Yeah.
Charlie is probably my favorite character.
Yeah, we get. I
The
mean, you get
one.
a very good grasp early on of just like how serious this, the school is, and how difficult it
Mhm.
is, you know, the obviously the parents. I mean, it made me laugh. There's like the one kid. I guess he's like a younger age kid, where he's like crying. He's like, I don't want to go
Yes.
here. I'm like, I could feel the same. If I'm that age and my parents are just shipping me off to this school to live. But so yeah,
And the
But I mean, they
kid
also
that
do
they were
have a
talking to the doctor. They're talking to the kid that was talking to the doctor. He had snuffy nose or whatever, and the guy just took the medicine and just shut the door on their faces too. I thought that was pretty priceless. Also,
oh yeah. But I mean, they also do have a pretty impressive record. I mean, they said they had what,
oh
like a
yeah, absolutely.
75% like attend Ivy League schools. Like I mean, something they're doing works.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. There's obviously nothing bad about the school. It's just not something that I would ever imagine.
So you're telling me that rich parents send their kids to a rich school that leads them to an Ivy League? There's not like a pipeline or anything like that.
Yeah, no.
Like was it Skull and Bones or whatever the that secret society? Oh, shh! Don't say that.
Well, on the first day of classes, the boys are surprised by the unorthodox teaching methods of the new English teacher, John Keating, a Welton alumnus who previously taught at the Chester School in London, England. Mr. Keating encourages his students to seize the day, or carpe diem, and pushes his students to call him "Oh Captain, my Captain," if they dare to do so. So I really like that we didn't go straight to Keating's class,
Mm-hmm.
and instead we go to all the other classes where you're getting like the chemistry teacher, or the math teacher, I forget which one. He's like, the first 20 questions of chapter one are due tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then you get the Latin teacher who's just going through. You said that earlier. I don't know how you remembered that, but
Oh, I made up the words. I don't know what words he was saying. I was just doing the Beatles. Obla dee, obla da. That's all I was doing.
you could have fooled me because I thought you just knew the words.
I mean, at the end of the movie, there's a thing where he's like, he says some O word is like, that's grass, and then he says, there's something he says the word for earth, and I don't remember what it was.
So
But
You're better than me if you know some Latin.
the word you said was very close to whatever the word he said was.
So we go through all that, and then we get to Keating's class, and he just kind of walks out of the classroom, and then he's like, pets his head
Let's
out. I was
go.
like, well, come on.
Which again shows you Cameron too,
Mhm.
because he was like, "Wait, what are we doing? No, wait, I can't get up. That's not allowed."
Mhm.
And again, Charlie was the first one that got up and said, "Let's go." I mean, he was getting after it, And the trophy case scenes or whatever, where you get the
Yep.
carpe diem and the seize my day and the oh captain, my captain, that was just golly. Again, you're looking at people that used to be here that were just kids like you, and now they're food for worms. That's I like that scene. I know it's good to again to have the kids to be able to see outside of what's around them right now and maybe think about the future.
Was
Yeah.
this also the scene where they ripped the introduction? Like he was like,
Yeah.
read
So I
read
don't.
this paragraph.
I think
of the
it's after
introduction.
that. I
Yeah,
think
this is after it, but I don't know if but it comes very shortly after, which is again another great. I love that he actually has him go through the whole paragraph and then rip it
Yeah.
out.
which also in that trophy scene though there is foreshadowing because Keaton says the quote that talked about stop breathing and turn cold and die. When he's saying that, the camera is on Neil when he says that.
I did
And
not
so
notice
that
that.
was one of those things to look back. I was like, oh man, wait, hold on. Did I just see that or whatever? So yeah, that is a little foreshadowing for you there. Nuggets of wisdom by Ernie Ferguson.
Nuggets of wisdom. Oh, because Ernie has so many of those.
Yeah, well, you just ask me, I'll tell you.
But yeah, like right after that, I think we get the scene with the ripping out, and then
Yeah.
we get the teacher walking by who pops in. Did that ever happen to you, Ernie? Another teacher pop in on your class
Oh, I didn't
and,
care.
and try to tell you what you're doing is wrong, or
No, I mean that's like I said, I didn't care. It does remind me of a couple of teachers I worked with. They had rooms. This was at not at your school, Dakota. There was they had a they had
I love
they
how
had
you
a
have to
door.
preface that.
They had a door in between them, their room, and it had like a little peephole or whatever. And one of them was getting observed. The other one, who is a notorious prankster, gets his water bottle and starts shooting like water through there, trying to hit him. And it's like, and then another time, again, when he's getting observed, the other guy just busts into the room. Hey, so and so's here. And he looked and saw the assistant principal and went, oh, and went back in his room. But again, that's where I was lucky where I was teaching. It was very relaxed atmosphere. It wasn't, but it was like, that's, just seeing the guy walk by, and then again, here you go, Charlie. He had the paper balled up, and he's pushed it in his mouth because he didn't want to get shown, which again shows the kind of the growth for Charlie, where he was eager to do something, but he didn't want to get caught compared to the end of the film. But and again, the guy that's kind of stepped in was the Latin teacher, who is the teacher that does wave, kind of tips his hat to Keaton at the end of the movie also. But yeah, just the reaction of the kids of, I mean, I can imagine doing that, having a textbook and telling my kids to rip something out of the textbook and them going, what? No, I can't do that. So again, that's kind of a priceless, which again, that goes back to poetry anyways. I mean, we can all read the same poem and get, 3 different meanings out of it, but teaching it by the rhythm, or again, I like how he draws the line graph up, and of course Cameron's up there. He's got his ruler. He's drawing it up. He does what Walt Whitman, then he does Shakespeare, and then that's when Keaton just says throw it all away or whatever. Then he just scratches it out of his notebook. I'm like,
Well, so Keating has the students take turns standing on his desk to demonstrate ways to look at life differently, tells them to rip out the introduction of their poetry books that explains a mathematical formula for writing poetry, and invites them to make up their own style of walking in a courtyard to encourage their individualism. Keating's methods attract the attention of strict headmaster Gail Nolan, who claims the lesson was misguided. So, first of all, a mathematical formula for writing poetry?
I don't get that.
That's not a thing. I mean, poetry is, like you said, there's different ways to take it. There is no set. I mean, math is, there's one answer to the formula. That's not the case for, again. That's just,
you're coming at it as a romantic type of reader, not again, not a human, not something. This is the way poetry is supposed to be written. Iambic pentameter. Just ba 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 ba. That's how it's supposed to be written. Again, that's one of those things that's why poetry is, it's all over the place, because there are different. It's like art. Like people that like Andy Warhol, I don't understand it. I like Campbell Soup, and you pointed up there, but there are other people that are just like mesmerized with it. But again, you're not talking about a big liberal arts school here.
Yeah,
you're talking about we are building well-rounded conservative men that are going to be bankers, doctors, lawyers, bringing feeling in. And this is where Keaton it was behind the 8 ball anyways. Bringing feeling in to any type of classroom is not, no, we have to break things down logically. We have to break things down systematically, mathematically, because that's the way we've always done it, and that's how it should be done.
I also think, and I think the parallel you used earlier, like with the pipeline to straight to Ivy League schools, is that's kind of it. Like, you have a pretty cookie cutter school.
Yep.
Like, hey, you come in, you follow our formula, and you have a very high chance of making it into an Ivy League school. If you work, you apply yourself, you do it. Like here's the plan. Here's the schedule. And I think a lot of it is also like, I really feel like if they didn't have to teach poetry, they wouldn't have. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's because a lot of colleges, have requirements for school. Like, they have requirements for classes that have to be taught in high school, do they not?
Yeah.
Or it could be like a state thing where, like, hey, you have to teach this or whatever.
I think that, again, that gives you a little bit of culture. If you're teaching Shakespeare, those radicals like Byron and people like that,
What did
you
that?
know,
Yeah.
that's no. Good old fashioned Shakespeare,
Yep.
some stuff that's straight down the line,
Mm-hmm.
that gives you enough when you're at parties, you have enough to be able to make yourself seem even more cultured than you actually are. And
Mm-hmm.
because again, it's all about aesthetics, it's all about how you look and how you
Mm-hmm.
can act. And if you're having these radical thoughts and radical things, that's why again, him teaching them outside the classroom was such a big deal too. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's not the way we've done it this way at this institution for so long, and look at what we've produced. Don't step outside of that. That is again a major theme of the movie of conformity. You know, are you going to color inside the lines, or are you going to color outside the lines?
Mm-hmm.
Well, upon learning that Keaton was a member of the unsanctioned Dead Poets Society while at Welton, Neil restarts the club. Him and his friends sneak off campus to a cave where they read the poetry where they read poetry in realization that Keating's lessons and their involvement with the club encourage him to live their lives on their own terms. Meanwhile, Knox pursues Chris Newell, a cheerleader who's dating Chet Danbury, a football player from a local public school whose family is friends with the Knoxes. So probably, I don't. One of my favorite scenes of this whole movie is them sneaking out to go to the cave for the first
Mm-hmm.
time. First of all, the music is. I love the music to it. It's kind of very spooky, going through the schools. It's a real cool scene, but it's to me there's like a thing where like they're sneaking out to do do this thing. It's very forbidden. It's very against the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love that it goes from spooky music and it switches to lightheartedness very quickly because you realize it's not kids going to break laws or do
Mm-hmm.
drugs or something like that. They're going to a cave to read poetry.
And they're bringing a big box of raisins and a half-eaten roll to eat
Yeah.
too.
So
I
it's
was
like
hungry.
it's just kind of like a symbolism to like they're just going to do something that's
Mm-hmm.
fun and they can express themselves, but yet it's something that the people of the school look down upon. So I don't, maybe I'm looking too much into that, but that was just that whole scene where it's like the music is real serious, spooky, and then all of a sudden it's just lightheartedness.
Mm-hmm. There was a couple things that kind of stood out to me in all this was um Lord, it just was. I'll start with my other thing. Like, how does this kid end up at this house where he meets this girl?
He was
Isn't
brought
it?
there.
Yeah, he was brought there.
No, no, I understand he was brought there, but like, and I understand that, like, hey, that's friends of the family, but like, Ferg, have you ever done that and just been like, hey, your friend,
No,
we've been friends for a long time. Here, why don't you just take my kid
Well,
and let
I
him come
think it's
eat
more
dinner
of a
with y'all?
thing where like um this is obviously like a wealthy family, and so they're kind of
Yeah.
like looking for
I
like
think they host like a kid every now and
yeah,
then, and maybe take
yeah,
him under their wing every year. And it just happened to be Knox's
yeah,
turn
which is
to do
funny
that.
because their own son is a jock who's not very smart
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
that goes to the public school. But yeah, I think
I,
it's
ju- I, ju- I just
I could see this being a thing for like rich preppy schools like
yeah,
this. Yeah, I
yeah.
could see where like a
it
certain student goes to a wealthy family. They might even donate to the school.
100%.
I
Yeah,
think that comment was made that it was like alums or something like
yeah.
that
So
or
they probably
donors or
like
something.
they donate to the school, so
Okay,
they like
I
want to
remember
meet
that
like
now.
a student that has a bright future. That
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
part of
still
the
is just
networking of a
yeah,
private school like that.
yeah.
I guess that's because I attended public school, but it is just a little bit of a weird concept to me.
I also think it's like a New England type of thing too.
Yeah,
I don't think. I mean, in the South, even if you go to a private school, you're gonna see somebody at church, or you're gonna see them at the Dollar
hmm
General or something like that.
which is, I don't
It's
even think
not.
there's that many private schools around here, is it?
We have
I think
private schools,
Well,
but not
not
like
like
boarding
this.
schools.
Yeah,
I don't
oh
think we
yeah,
have
not
boarding
nothing
schools.
like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the other thing that stood out to me within this scene was like it's not time, okay, and I like my sleep, and and the whole
yes.
time I'm thinking is I'm like, man, there's no way in this world I'm about to sneak out at night
When you
And
were
I
in
and
high
I
school,
get
though.
the I never did.
But I mean,
Yeah,
did you? I mean,
I
did
didn't.
you stay up though?
Oh
Not
no,
really.
I stayed up. I
So I mean,
100%.
so
Well,
again,
no, okay, I see your point.
now you're talking again. Remember, you're talking
I
about a
see your
bunch of
point now.
teenage boys that's away from their
Yeah.
family that has stifling,
Yeah,
boring classes.
Mhm.
Now all of a sudden, wait a minute, there's this cave
yeah,
where
It's like,
they got
yeah,
to
I
go
see
out
your
and do something different. Oh
yeah.
yeah,
I
come
was gonna
on.
say
point.
it's not. It's not like I get it. I was just gonna say it made me realize how much older I've gotten. That I'm
Oh
looking
yeah.
at now and
Not that
thinking,
I'm
oh,
100%.
out of
you
high
telling me
school.
I'm gonna go stay up all night and then go to the school the next day? Like that's not
Yeah.
happening.
Oh yeah,
But
no.
yeah, as a high school kid, even though I didn't sneak out, yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, especially if I'm going to this school where I mean, in
Mhm. I know. No, I
they
definitely
aren't
know.
even allowed to have a radio because they
Yeah, they're having to
Pitts
make a
and
radio.
It's a radar.
Meeks are
Yeah,
trying to, is that wouldn't be a radio, would it?
I do.
Gosh.
Now that you mention it, Ferg, and point that out, like I do see what you're saying. Like, I remember back as a high schooler,
Yeah,
there was
you
several
have to
nights that
think
I
back to
stayed
when
up.
we were young, Dakota.
Yeah, but yeah, tell me about it.
See, I have to think about
Um,
back when y'all were young.
well, I do remember several late nights when I would stay up like reading a book, or I would stay up
Yeah.
like watching a TV show and something like that, and like leaving one headphone out, making sure that you don't hear your parents walking down the hallway. Like, yeah, I see it now.
Which, by the
I
way,
get it now.
poor dog. Did you see how many milk bones they gave that dog? I mean,
Oh yeah,
that dog is rolled
I
up
feel
on
so
its
bad for
side. Its feet can't touch the ground anymore because he had about 20 milk bones or biscuits and stuff like that. That dog is miserable
That's
that
also
night.
like you can just tell that these are like I mean that's not a good way to sneak out. Like give him one milk bone or two, but you just drop a whole
Yeah.
thing. Like surely like
Mhm.
someone would come out. Why is there 15 milk bones?
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. And then look, I get as you're watching this movie, you're like rooting for Knox to get the girl, but at the same time, he's kind of stalkerish in this. I mean, he meets this
Very.
girl,
Little,
and they don't
just
even
a
really
little.
speak. I mean, they barely speak, and all of a sudden he's like in love with her, and then he's like
Yep.
calling her and stuff. So, I mean, if I was this girl, I'd be like, I don't even know who this dude is.
I know, it's like-
Which made it really random later. Which made it really random later when he calls her and she was like, "Oh, I was gonna call you. Like, why are you gonna call this person? You like spoke 2 words to him in your entire life."
No, she
but
had
it
a whole
does.
dinner with him.
No, she didn't.
Yeah, she was at the dinner.
Yeah, she was at the
Yeah,
dinner.
she was
Oh,
the one
she
that opened
was?
the door. Yeah, she's the one that opened the door.
I thought that he had the dinner with the parents and then she went out with Chet.
I think Chet was there too, though. But
you
I mean,
sure?
I think
Yeah, I thought the whole family was there.
no, I'm not sure. But that's what my story, and I'm sticking with it right now. But
I thought that he had the dinner with the parents and her and Chet went out. That's why.
I thought she was there too with Chet.
Okay,
but again,
maybe she was. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm in the same boat.
it ain't that deep a dive right now. So I mean,
we'll do instant replay later. Anyway, Neil discovers his love of acting and gets the role of Puck in a local production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, despite the disapproval of his domineering father who wants him to attend Harvard to study medicine. Keating helps Todd come out of his shell and realizes his potential when he takes them through an exercise in self-expression, resulting in him spontaneously composing a poem in front of the class. I'm trying to remember. Some of these scenes I think I'm getting mixed up in my head.
the Todd and Keating scene.
Yeah, in their dorm. Yeah.
No, this was the one. This is the one where he gets him, and he because I think at this time that's when we have like the scenes between is it Todd and Neil where he just like he wanted to try to write his poetry, but couldn't write the poetry because he was scared to death. But the scene with Keating and Todd is where he gets Todd to actually speak out in front of class.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And as far again, I'm not a cinemaphile, but how they filmed the camera going around Keating and Neil, I mean Todd, the whole entire time while he was going through this was again, I'm not this type of person, but it was a beautiful way to film the scene of just circling around them and building up until you finally get like Todd releasing all this stuff, and you have Keating looking up at him just kind of in awe, going, "Yes, This is you when you see that light switch go off in a student, you see it. It's just like, yes, that's what I want to see. That was an absolutely wonderful scene right there.
And one of the things that stood out to me about the scene actually came before this, and I thought it made me think of how great of a teacher like he was in this movie, and made me think of great teachers in real life. He gets the one dude up that does his poem, and he said a cat on the mat or something like that.
Yeah,
And instead of like admonishing him or being like giving him like, oh, I'm gonna give you a bad grade, but he's like, he just kind of goes to like, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, and then just kind of the way he handles it, and then you kind of see it in the kid's face, like, oh, I should have put more work into this, and then you see it later in the movie
same face.
Yeah, when they do, and it just shows you the kind of role a teacher can have by there's not always like you don't have to. You know what I'm trying to say, Ernie? You're a teacher.
He makes the same face in the Captain My Captain speech at the very end of the movie when he decides to stand up on the desk too. He's one of those. So he's like, it's just like, oh man, I know I could have done better. And he looks at him because like he was probably again maybe one of the ones that he may or may not have had the report on Keating or not. I don't know, doubt it. But he's like, this isn't right. He would have stuck up for me, so I'm going to stand up too for him. And you just kind of see it.
So he does that whole poem, and Keating could have just been like, oh, you didn't put a lot of effort in this, you get an F or whatever. But instead, he takes it as doesn't admonish him, but uses it as a way to teach, and then he makes an impact on this kid's life, and you see that later in the movie. That just stuck out to me, and something that I think a lot of good teachers do.
Yeah.
But all right, so.
Oh, by the way, there's one other scene earlier than this, real fast, where they were reading Shakespeare and it was about eating dogs, and I just thought, okay, Shakespeare's talking about eating dogs, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. The first thing they start, the first time they have the meeting in the cave, the first thing they're doing is like telling ghost stories.
Yeah,
they do end up like into poetry, but it just I thought like immediately the first thing they do is tell us ghost stories. I'm like, oh, I don't think we quite grasp the meaning of the Dead Poets Society. And then what is it the poem they start chanting, because it was stuck in my head as I was watching the movie, and now I can't remember what it was as they were coming out of the cave. Oh, that's
I don't remember.
Oh, I don't. That was they were chanting it though. Now that I'm thinking of a different thing.
Is that when Charlie was playing the saxophone as they were coming out too?
No, that's the scene I was thinking of.
I think that's later. But all right, so Charlie publishes an article in the school newspaper in the club's name suggesting that girls be admitted to welting, which the other club members strongly oppose, fearing it will expose their club to the school authorities. Nolan paddles Charlie to coerce him to reveal who else is in the Dead Poets Society, but he resists because he is Nwanda. Nolan also speaks with Keating, warning him that he should discourage his students from questioning authority. Keating admonishes the boys, warning them that one must assess all potential consequences of one's actions. As I was rewatching this movie, I don't know how many times I've seen this movie, probably 4 or 5, so not like a ton. I forgot like how quick. So like it starts with this article in the newspaper, and then things really start to roll.
Yeah.
After this, like one after the other. So that kind of surprised me. So it's like a domino effect. It just gets bigger and bigger. But yeah, I mean, I don't. And Charlie, Charlie is what he is, and obviously he's a guy that doesn't like being at this school, and like he comes from a rich family, but doesn't like the life that's laid out for him. But
yeah,
again, something probably should not have done. Although it is funny when he does the phone ringing and he said, "It's God." He says we should have girls at Wilton.
Then I like what way Keaton says it would have been better or whatever if you said this is God calling collect.
Again, though, like such a great way, because he comes in and he's obviously way more serious than he's been at any point in this movie. I mean, it's a thing like what you did was wrong, but the way he does it, and then he ends it with if nothing else, getting kicked out of the school would you wouldn't be able to attend my classes, and you just kind of see it like you see it on Charlie's face, like, yeah, I've messed up, I should have done this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to bringing that quote in that he started off earlier about, sucking the marrow out of the bone, but then choking on the bone. Then he adds, but you're choking on the bone. Again, going back like as any good teacher would do is something that he's already taught them, and then ties it into what he's doing now. So again, he is dead serious because he does say this is just stupid, but he still interjects some of that humor in that you see, which again is completely different than any other teacher that he has they any of them that they have. Period.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And then I think we get the startings of because at this point we're like, okay, this is just kids in a cave reading poetry. Like it's not a big deal. This is when we start to
Mm-hmm.
realize this Dead Poet Society is going to end up being like a thing, like a problem. And
Yeah, because you see it. I mean, you see it first with Charlie. Charlie's like,
Yeah,
heck yeah,
he fully embraced it.
I'm a thigh man too. This is all me. This is what I got. And then again, the compliant Neil then starts falling under it too when he goes out for the play because he said I'm just going to try out for the play and I'll worry about my father later. I mean, I have to get a
Mm-hmm.
part first before I worry about that.
well, on the eve of, well, I feel like we're missing something here, like the whole Knox and the party. Anyways, on the
Oh,
eve
what
of
is the jocks? I forget who the jocks called him. What the name that they
Mutt.
were called? Mutt.
No, he
Yeah,
was
That's his brother,
Mutt Sanders' brother.
brother.
yeah, something like that.
Mutt,
Again,
Mutt.
though, very creepy. He goes and sits on the
Yeah,
couch, and she's just sleeping. I'm like, and he just
It's
bends down and kisses her. This
But it's
is
okay. He reads poetry to her later, and everything that makes poetry makes everything. It's stalking okay. It makes
yeah. Look,
everything okay.
he did at least apologize for that, though.
Apologize
I
for being
will give him that.
creepy.
Yeah,
I
he did
apologize
he
for
apologized
kissing
for
you while you
something.
were asleep,
Yeah.
even though I'm not your boyfriend or anything. Oh well. On the eve of the play's opening performance, Neil's father discovers his involvement in the play and demands that he quit immediately. Keaton advises Neil to stand his ground to prove to his father that acting is important to him. After Neil participates in the play, his father retaliates by withdrawing him from Welton and enrolling him in a military academy. Lacking any support from his mother and unable to explain to his father how he feels, Neil dies by suicide.
And I don't really like the way that kind of writes Keating's and Neil's interaction with this because I really feel like and I mentioned this earlier that Keating wasn't like, hey, like stand up to your father, like just tell him how you really feel.
Yeah,
He was like, hey, like have a conversation with him.
yeah.
Sit down and talk to him man to man and let him know, hey, this is something that you want to do and you maybe want to pursue. Like I just to me I don't feel like that was written very well. Which it is also a Wikipedia summary, also
Yeah.
not a
I love, I love when Neil walks in his dorm room and his dad is there. He like immediately knows what this is about.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the line where he tells him how he found out. He's like, "No, my niece is in a play with your son." And he's like, "No, you must be mistaken. My son's not in a play." And then he's like, "You made a liar out of me." Like very old school, type of way of looking at it.
It really is because I feel like I really feel like most parents would be hear that and be like, oh well, yeah, I didn't know my son was doing that.
I mean,
And then
I'm
I mean
sitting there
don't get me
thinking
wrong,
like,
I get the conversation like, hey, why didn't you tell me you were doing a play? But obviously this isn't the character that Smith is or Mister Perry
how
is.
how surprising that you send your son to boarding school and for 9 months out of the year and you don't know everything that's happening with him.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
shook.
But that's why he goes after the school too, and that's why they serve up Keating to him also because
Hmm.
I am sending my kid there. They shouldn't be doing stuff off campus without me
Hmm.
knowing. It's a boarding school. Things should be happening on campus. If things are going off campus,
Yeah, which
y'all should know what's going on.
granted, we find that he did earlier in the he faked having
Yeah,
he had to have a what was it, letter of approval from his father and the
Oh yeah,
yeah.
headmaster,
yeah.
and so he faked that. So obviously that's how he gets through that. So, but I don't even know if the dad ever brings that up or finds out. I don't even.
No, I
I
don't
don't
think
know
he
if we
knows
find out
about it.
about that.
but
And don't get me wrong, like, I can kind of see where the dad's coming from in a sense because like you said, for like, hey, I'm paying you for my kid to be on
Yeah,
campus at all
Mhm.
times, and he's not. You know,
because it's not.
he's leaving and going somewhere else. You know.
I mean, as a parent, you don't want to blame yourself for your child's suicide.
Hmm.
I mean, it's already hard enough that you're dealing with the loss of your child,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and and I'm not. There's something more to this than just the dad, because you can't sit there and point the
Hmm.
finger all at the dad. It is the unfortunate perfect storm with Keating with the ideas, with Neil wanting to be able to pursue things, and dad,
Yeah.
having a hard line, and that's, but that the again, I mentioned soul crushing again when Neil's dad asks him what he wants.
Yes,
It,
this is
it
a
it's
Hmm.
what it is what Keating has been telling him to do.
Yeah.
Keating tells him, tell your dad what you want, you
Yeah.
know, and for Mr. Perry to sit there and open up and say, tell me what you want, whether regardless of whether he was going to listen or not, that was Neil's opportunity.
Yep.
And when Neil couldn't get it out,
and you see the
Hmm.
look of defeat on his face.
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
hard, especially as a parent. That is heartbreaking to be able to see. And it's just that it really physically hurt me to see that. Okay, tell him, tell him.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, no, he truly did give up. He really
Yeah.
gave up, and I was like, oh
And then
man,
you get the part where he's his dad has walked out, his mom's there, and he was like, I was good. And
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
that thing in his mind where it's like I could have been what I wanted to be, but I'm too
yeah.
Yeah.
afraid. And he's like, it's tough. It's a tough scene. It makes now I'm dang it, Ernie, for making me watch this stupid movie again. It kills me every time. Uh, did want to do. I did want to go back and mention though before the play we get the whole thing with Knox and Chris, which
Chris,
again is such a
Um,
weird part to this movie. I mean, it plays because obviously Keaton's teachings are encouraging Todd to come out of his shell, Neil to not stand up to his father but go after what he wants. So there's different things the kids are doing, but she shows up and he convinces her, let's go to this play together.
are you
Give
going to
me
play with Chet?
give
No.
me a chance. And she's like, okay, I'll give you a chance. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you're giving the guy that you barely know that kissed you while you're sleeping and you have a boyfriend and you still have this boyfriend and you're like, okay, I'll give you a chance. Like,
yeah.
this
What did Keating say early in the movie? What is the purpose of poetry? To woo
Woo women.
women. And whenever he did 10 Things I Hate About You or whatever, and he goes into the
Hmm.
class and he says the poetry and embarrasses her to death, he still wooed the woman. So again,
Hmm.
sexual harassment. Oh, doesn't matter if you have poetry. Remember that. That's what we learned from this movie.
That's how you get around it. That's
Yeah,
just quote.
disclaimer,
Oh
children.
well. Yeah.
No, do not do that. Just in case. He told us he could do that as long as we do it with poetry. No.
This is where Suggs is going to cut in the disclaimer. This podcast does not support.
He's gonna put stock music over what I just said and just oh, we're back.
Oh
well,
man.
Well, which again, we have to have levity when we're talking about, I,
Yeah, it's such a
the
heavy
whole
topic.
entire suicide scene. I mean, he has his clothes folded neatly on his bed. He
Hmm.
opens up the window. He puts the like the puck
The
crown or whatever
crown.
that is
Yeah.
on the snowed window seal. He gets his own dad's gun, goes into his dad's library. You know,
one
mom doesn't wake up.
one
Mom
one
doesn't.
one thing that killed me, just real quick, the fact that like it shows him sitting there twiddling the key in his hand.
He's
Like,
thinking about it, whether he
yeah,
Yeah,
should
like
or not.
he was debating
yeah,
it. Yeah.
it's because I mean, and thankfully there are suicide hotlines and stuff because this is obviously a problem,
Hmm.
but man, it just kills me everything about this scene because it's not just like you said, it's not just him committing suicide, it's everything that's leading up to it. This conversation
Yeah.
with his parents, this the look of defeat on his face, the whole thing putting the crown on his head and walking down the steps and this scene is just soul crushing.
And that
Hmm.
goes. again, I mentioned at the beginning of this having a friend whose brother committed suicide and the devastation that it leaves behind.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I can't pretend to know. I don't suffer from depression. I know family members that I have that do, that try to have to deal with it constantly, and I don't know how they live like that. But and so it's one of those things that's hard for me to fathom, hard for me to understand, because again, I saw what it did to my friend. I saw what it did to his mom. And again, I don't know what type of pain the kid was going through. I don't know. And again, I'm not, and I won't point any fingers because that doesn't do any good. But just the absolute in the short amount, because I didn't realize how much time, how much little of the movie was left after the suicide. But just, I mean, like looking at Todd. I mean, that was Todd's one kind of route into the world,
Mhm.
and just how crushed he was and how he can, I mean, even, and that's where, that's also where you get uh Charlie. That's when Charlie basically gave up too. He
Mhm.
just said, screw this. I mean, he was still fighting the good fight for a while. Yeah, he's rambunctious and doing stuff like that, but he just said, I'm out. This is wrong. I'm not going to do that. And that's the thing about suicide. It hurts the person with
Mhm.
that commits the suicide, and it hurts so many other people. And it's just, and that's again just a heart wrenching. And I can't imagine what we think of the father, good or bad, but to be cradling his son in his arms after the kid has
Oh
committed
yeah.
suicide, it just, again, soul crushing.
Yeah. And I think Kurtwood Smith does a great job with that.
Yeah,
Really showing, and you could really hear in his voice like that he did care about his son. And then obviously like and I think it really showed that everything he was doing was in his son's best interest. It wasn't like he was just being controlling just to be controlling. Like we mentioned earlier, he would, hey, like I didn't have this opportunity growing up, and I'm giving you this opportunity.
yeah.
I think he was doing it more of I just don't want you to mess up something good.
I
You know,
want you to have better, and he,
yeah,
again, trying. It's the only way he knows how to provide better for his child.
yeah.
Well, at Neil's parents' request, Nolan investigates his death. During that investigation, Cameron blames Keating for Neil's death to escape punishment for his own participation in the Dead Poets Society and names the society's other members. When Charlie confronts him over this, Cameron urges the other students to let Keating take the fall. Charlie then punches Cameron and is expelled. Each of the boys is called to Nolan's office to sign a letter confirming Cameron's false allegations. When Todd's turn comes, he reluctantly signs the letter under the pressure of his parents, and Keating is fired as a result. So again, this is it's such a sickening part.
Hmm.
Like I guess I can understand as parents, but like
Yeah,
you're trying to
Yeah.
put the blame somewhere else, and then the school just putting it on Keaton. But it's
Hmm.
such a tough part of the movie. But the scene with them waking up Todd, which first of all,
oh,
I before we get into the scene, which is a great scene movie wise, how in the heck did they know that Neil is dead? It's the middle of
I'm
the
sure
night.
that
This is
I'm sure somebody would have
1959.
told him.
Who told them?
They still have phones though.
the headmaster probably, or
So,
one of the teachers probably.
okay, so you're saying the headmaster in the middle of the night wakes. Well, first off, if he was going to tell someone, wouldn't he tell Todd, his roommate, first? And then
No, he's probably going to Charlie first because again,
Yeah.
if this is tied into the Dead Poet Society stuff,
Hmm.
he already knows that Charlie
He
had so,
knows Charlie's a part of it.
and
Yeah.
Charlie is the one that tells Todd also. So again, that's I think how that kind of, again, the warpath is about to start happening,
yeah.
and it's
Hmm.
happening quick and fast.
Hmm.
But anyways, I digress. But we get the scene. He wakes up Todd. Uh, Todd. Todd's like asleep. Like, oh, like, leave me alone. And then he wakes up, realizes, Charlie's crying. So this is like something serious has happened. He
Yeah,
looks
Hmm.
over. Everyone's there except Cameron, which you pointed out, earlier in the podcast.
think
Foreshadowing there.
yes,
But man, touches such a tough scene, and then he walks out in the snow, and
in the
they're kind of
snow.
walking out behind him, like they're not really sure. And at first he's like smiling, like it's so beautiful, and then he just kind of falls, and it's like it hits him, what's
That's
Yeah.
happened.
that's another beautiful, heart wrenching scene. Just
Yeah.
them in their cloaks, not Todd, but everybody else in their cloaks in the snow. Just that was again beautifully filmed. I thought.
Oh yeah, and then I think it really gives a good display of real life. I mean, like I had a friend who passed away earlier this year who we kind of went through the same thing. Where like at first when you hear the news, you're like, no, like
Yeah,
no, you're no, that's not
denial. Yep.
it. There's no way. And then you get to the house and
Yeah, I mean,
you know
what
you
is it that Todd says? Like, it's not that he wouldn't kill him; it's like he wouldn't leave us or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah, and then there's he does the whole justification. No, like he wouldn't kill himself.
it was
His
his
father
dad.
did
It
it.
was his dad.
His dad did it.
Yeah.
His dad did it.
Yeah,
And then it's the the just the breaking down and
Hmm.
the throwing up like it's 100% like hey that's the dude going through 5 stages of grief right there on the screen.
And
and
then
that's the one thing. Go ahead, Caleb.
I like that, then we switch to like where they're in like whatever they're meeting
That little
in.
room.
Yeah, and then
Hmm.
in their minds, we're the ones that are in trouble. And then Cameron comes in,
Hmm.
which of course, Charlie's already like Cameron, like yeah,
Yeah.
Cameron's gonna
He
get
already
us
he,
out.
he already
Yeah,
knew.
he
He
knew.
already,
knew.
but like in their heads, it's them. And then he
Yeah.
comes in,
Yeah.
and then they slowly realize, oh, they're trying to go after Keating, and then that's what makes them really mad, or Charlie, and then the other ones
Yeah.
too, or Todd. It's like Keating didn't have anything to do with this. He was just a great teacher,
Mm.
and that's tough.
And like
And that's the thing where like you can't really blame the school for
no,
firing Keating
yeah,
because the information that they were provided was, hey, he influenced this kid to that eventually led to this.
Yeah, I mean,
He
no, the
led the
person
dead
I'm
poets
blaming is
society.
Cameron. That dude's a douchebag.
Yeah.
which I mean,
And
but that's what but I mean, Charlie called it out. They gotta the school's not gonna. No, it was Cameron that called it out. The school's not gonna take the fall.
mm-mm.
So that's where, because again, it's of high prestige, so it can't take the fall for something like this happening on their grounds. So again, it's this miscreant, Keating,
Mhm.
that did it, and just. But also, the punch that Charlie threw on Cameron, nice. I was like,
Satisfying.
yes, I was
Very
like,
satisfying.
heck yeah, do it again. But another sad scene though. What?
Yeah, do it again.
Don't stop. Keep
Yeah,
going.
I'm like,
MMA.
I mean, make that nose
Finish
totally
him.
crooked. Yeah, finish him. Whoop-dee. But another sad part was that whenever they were calling names, and they right before they got to Todd, and Todd was knocking on Meeks' door, and Meeks wouldn't open the door
Mhm.
because he was ashamed
Yeah,
of what he did to
Yep.
Keating,
yeah.
and that's why there is a
What
little
did
bit
you
of
tell
catharsis.
them? Nothing
Yeah,
they didn't already know.
yeah, and that's
Um,
why there was some cathartic moment at the very end with these boys too.
Well, Nolan, who had taught English at Welton prior to becoming headmaster, takes over Keating's English class with the intent of adhering to traditional Welton rules. Keating interrupts the class to gather his belongings. As he leaves, Todd reveals to Keating that the boys were intimidated into signing the letter that resulted in his termination. Keating assures Todd that he believes him. Nolan threatens to expel Todd and anyone else who speaks out of line. Despite the threat, Todd stands up on his desk and says, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." The other members of the Dead Poets Society, except Cameron, as well as several other students in the class, do the
Tool.
same. Touched by their support, Keating proudly thanks the boys before departing. Um, out of
Who thought it'd be
everything,
wise for Keating to get his stuff while the kids were still in the classroom? That's a mistake on the
Honestly,
headmaster's part.
it
There,
really is.
idiot.
It kind of confused me.
as
Why was
everything,
the dude not escorted? If this
yeah,
guy
I feel like that.
is the reason one kid killed himself, why was he not like immediately escorted from the premises?
We'll mail you your stuff,
Yeah.
Just came by
idiots.
to pick up my belongings.
And y'all are educating leaders of America, idiots.
These are the future doctors and lawyers.
Don't work on me.
Out of all the things that Cameron did, this scene might be what irks me the most. We get the whole thing where he's like, read the introduction, and he's like, "Oh, it's been ripped out," and we'll grab somebody's. It's all been ripped out, and then
Keating laughing at it too. He's just turning around smiling about it.
and then we get the thing where he asks him what have y'all covered, and you get the Cameron's I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like he's just like, "Oh, we've kind of skipped around. We've done this and we did a little bit of this and like you kind of, it's just like throwing salt on the wound. Like Keating's such a bad teacher. We didn't do nothing in this class, and it's like that's so not true. But God, I can't stand Cameron.
I'm glad they didn't have him stand up though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I would have been. I would have been like, sit your butt down. You don't belong on the desk.
Because that's another reason why he was answering all the headmaster's questions too. Because again, being number one is probably more important. And I know he's thinking, well, with Neil gone, that makes it easier for me to be number one, type of thing. As dark and demented as that is, but
But and then this, I mean, such a great scene and an iconic scene that I've seen in TV shows, but we get the whole standing on the desk and the "Oh Captain, my Captain." It's and we see each kid like slowly, in their face, like, "Oh, I've got to do this." And the one kid that did the cat on the map poem. So it's not just the Dead Poets Society, but you see the impact that this teacher has made. For these kids, and
the other kids, not just Cameron, the other kids that just would not look at him.
Yeah,
they wouldn't look at Keating.
They
just kept their heads down.
Yeah.
And then we get the headmaster who's like, "Sit down," like.
Which this, I mean, to kind of wrap it up, the quote that I loved the most from this movie was, I think, Keating, and I don't remember if it was the headmaster or Keating and the Latin teacher. I think it was the headmaster, and Keating says, "I thought the point of education was to learn to think for yourself." Again, I would hope that I taught that way, but I firmly believe that is a large part of education, is to teach kids how to think for themselves. And that's the one thing I like. That's one of the big messages, even though there are some negative connotations, the negative things that happen whenever you think for yourself, but that's the one thing that was big for me.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up. Dead Poets Society. It only took us. We're just getting longer and longer.
Well, unlike last week where you and I rambled on, Dakota and I early on, we found our stride. We found our stride early, and we're going and going and going.
Yeah, I was doing my taxes while you were going.
Nice. Well, when you get to next week, that'll be the time where I've kind of probably shut up a little bit, but
I might do the whole show by myself next week.
That is true.
Well, all right. So, kind of move on to ratings. Who wants to go first? Ernie's like, let me go last, but I still don't even know what I'm going to rate it.
I really don't. I mean, it's my movie.
Let's mix things up. Dakota, you go first.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So, man, the entire time that I watched this movie, I really, really struggled with what I was going to rate it. God, I'm still stuck on it. The thing is, this is a great movie in my mind. I know it has a frustrating outcome because you like they painted, like, the school has a picture painted of Keating that's obviously not true, and it's not the outcome that you want to see, and it's an extremely sad movie, and I understand that and I get that. But all in all, I think this was an overall just a great movie that anybody can really sit down and I really think needs to watch at least once. My only gripe about the movie is it's a little slow. There are a lot of scenes that are kind of held on to just a little bit too long. Where a scene could be cut off at 15 seconds, they're still panning out from the same guy 30 seconds later, and I'm like, okay, like I get it, but that's the only thing. But that being said, I think I'm gonna give this movie I think I'm gonna give it a 9. Because I really do that. With that being the only gripe that I really have about this movie, I think all in all this was a very good movie, and I really think everybody should watch this at least once.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody should watch it at least once. I think, like I said, I've watched this twice in school now, both in high school and college. And in college, I wrote a paper on it, I think. I did something. I can't remember. So, I mean, there's lots to learn from this movie. I think definitely what the movie thrives in is Robin Williams' acting. He really makes the movie. and I don't know if it had been Liam Neeson or whoever else, they thought that it would have had the
Yeah.
same. And we've had this discussion with a lot of other movies. Back to the Future last week, we had the same discussion with Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. But yeah, Robin Williams definitely makes the movie. I don't know if I could go. Nah, I think nine's probably too high for me. But I'll give it an 8. I think it's a solid movie. It's a popcorn worthy movie. Something that I think everybody should watch at least once. So I'm going to go with an 8.
For me, art is about generating emotion, and this movie, if nothing, generates emotion. Again, it's not going to be your happy ending, which I'm okay with.
Not all movies or books or whatever have happy endings.
That's what I like too. I don't like necessarily cookie cutter things. That's why, again, Usual Suspects. I like the Usual Suspects. But this is, to me, it's one of those things where it pulls the emotion. And early on when I watched this, my emotions were for Neil and for Todd. Watching it this time, my emotions were with Keating as the teacher. And to me, this is a beautiful movie. Some of the scenes, like I said, the scene in the classroom with Keating and Todd was gorgeous. It was just a beautiful. The way it was shot was beautiful. Golly, I can't believe I'm about to do this. 9.25 is what I'm getting, and I hate myself that I'm giving another 9, but it is what it is. But again, I think, and also I guess also the big thing is because this is Robin Williams and he's doing drama, and to me I think that is
no. Comedy/drama. Google.
Excuse me. Comedy/drama.
Google tells us this.
Yes, and we can't go against Google. That is for sure. But again, for him to produce this movie or to act this movie, it was, especially from my time frame when I came in mine, where y'all have probably seen him in different things where it's not just comedy. Where for me, it was nothing but comedy. For him to produce this way, that's why I went with a 9.25.
Off the top of my head, I probably have, but off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that's not a comedy that I've, like, just off the top of my head, because everything I think of is comedy when I think it, except for this movie. But I'm
for
sure
the most part,
I'm sure there is something, but
Good Will Hunting.
But anyway, so okay, 8, 9, 9.25. That brings us out to 8.75. So that gives us another popcorn-worthy movie. If you don't know, the first time you're listening, we put our movies into 5 groups. Blockbusters the highest. So far, we only have 1 in that group. Popcorn-worthy is the next highest. Then we have the middle, which is cult classic, matinee only, and straight to video. And then 8.75. Ernie, where does that put us on our list?
That puts it number 2, falling behind Back to the Future and right above A Few Good Men.
Interesting. I wouldn't have expected that, honestly.
I didn't expect myself to give it a 9.25. I think 8.75 and 9 when I came into this is what I was thinking. But it just it gutted me again, which is a good segue for your movie.
Well, on that note, next week it's October. It means it's spooky time, boys. So we're going horror. 1996's Scream. Oh, I'm so excited. One of my favorite movies of all time, and I know Ernie is just absolutely looking forward to doing a horror.
No, this isn't horror. This is gore and jump scare. That's not a horror movie.
Okay. Well, you know what? We have the podcast.
We'll save it for. We
got a whole another week to talk about this.
we might not even get to the movie. It might be an hour long, just going back. But yes, I'm looking forward to doing that next week. And I think that's it, guys. We got anything to add? Dakota, glad to have you back this week.
Yeah,
glad to be back.
I'm sure next week he will have another excuse why he can't be on here.
Excuse me.
That'll be Ernie next week. He's got a what you gonna have to do next week? Water your plants?
I don't know. I'll find something. This might be a good time to get Old Man Suggs on here sometime. We got to for whenever we do Halloween, if we ever do Halloween, good gravy, is we need him on here.
Well, we're
We
doing
can't have him.
Halloween.
We can't have him rated though, but just have him talk about it because
If my
he'd
dad
wax
rated
poetic.
Halloween, he would break the poll. 50 out of 10. But yes,
scale of 1 to 10.
we will
100.
be doing Halloween on Halloween this year because that is on a Thursday. So I know Ernie is also looking forward to that.
Oh,
You can't
yes.
tell. Horror movies is not Ernie's favorite
No,
category.
we'll go into that next week also. Why it's not not my cup of tea.
All right. Well, anyways, another great movie. Ernie, great pick. I'm sure your next pick will also be riveting. I can't wait to find out what
You
that
never
is.
you never know what I'm going to pull out.
I have absolutely no clue.
I love it.
What was your pick before this? Oh, Star Wars. That's right.
Star Wars, which
That's the most surprising thing that you picked Star Wars.
True. Again, well, yeah, it is what it is. I gotta conform every now and then.
Well, anything to add? All right, Ernie, give us your little ending. What is it?
We'll see you at the movies.
All right, sounds good. See you guys next week.